All right, and good evening, everybody. This is Matt Waldman and my assistant here waiting in line, or standing room only, maybe, trying to get a chance to get a shot at watching some edge rushers tonight. And we're going to do that in the RSP Film Room. But the main guest that we have tonight is the guest that I kind of requested personally because today is my 45th birthday. And so I was thinking, what kind of present would I want to have if I'm going to do an RSP film room tonight? And I really wanted to do one because what would a birthday be if you didn't get a chance to watch a little football with a good friend? So, first on my list was I got to ask Ryan Riddle if he would do me the favor and join me tonight. So we're going to watch Randy Gregory tonight, the Nebraska edge rusher. So welcome, Ryan. Thanks for joining me, and I see you need a haircut too.
Right, yo. So in honor of your birthday, I'll wear the beanie, the Matt Waldman special, and we'll watch some edge rushers. Yeah, thanks for having me as always.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
Always a good time. Always a good time here.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are rather new to this and going, what's these two guys in beanies and one with a cat in his lap doing with this show? This show has made it this far not because of we're two guys in beanies with a cat in my lap, but really because we watch tape and study the nuances of football players and their talent. And this is really just two guys watching film where we're going to rewind things. We're going to talk about what makes a good football player, talk about maybe broader subjects when it comes to scouting and the evaluation process. For those of you who are unaware of who Ryan is and you crawled out of a rock or you're new to the game or something of that nature, Ryan is a writer at the Bleacher Report. He is also a former NFL player who played defensive end and outside linebacker and was a former star at Cal, at the University of Cal, where he was the all-time single-season sack leader. And one day I'm going to read you his scouting report that I have in an old Street and Smith's right here. And I will say, actually, you know what? We're going to do this right now. We're going to do this right now because I want you, Ryan, we're going to do this with you, actually, right here.
All right.
I want to hear.
Let's hear it.
All right. So does this guy sound familiar to you at all? Let's see if I can get this set up here. All right. I don't want to look at defensive tackles. We want to look at the ends.
I grew up on that magazine, by the way.
Did you really?
I never actually got to my own analysis or the analysis of me from that magazine.
I'm going to send you this one if you don't have it then, because then you should be the one to have this. So does this guy sound like you, true or false? Okay, let's see.
Right.
He was, athletic ability, above average athlete, 20 pounds lighter than average, will need to improve his strength, 7% body fat, 37-inch vertical jump. And then they say he excels as a pass rusher, he's quick off the ball, stays low and plays with leverage, uses his hands well to play off blocks, and he has the speed to turn the corner and close with a burst. His questionable instincts: he must be quicker to locate the ball. He's able to slide down the line and get through traffic, can change directions well, and he's effective in keeping containment. And he's been disruptive to offenses, but he struggles against the run, and he can be overpowered when run at, and he's inconsistent, flashes at times and disappears at others. Discipline, plays within the scheme. Does that sound like you?
There are some things that are spot on and some things that it just seems when you have a narrative like undersized, it's easy to apply certain traits to that narrative. Whether or not they exist, it just seems like you're not going to go wrong. Oh, undersized, you could probably run on him. That's actually one of the things that it's amazing that people in our defense were able to get sacks because there was no emphasis greater than stopping the run. And if you look at our 2 years or my year as a full-time starter in 2004, we were one of the best teams against the run. And if teams were like, oh, we can't run on the Cal Bears, but we can run against Ryan, but we're just not going to do it, that would be a weird thing for our opponents to do. There was really that. It was a must by my coach, and it was the #1 priority that he had. He didn't really care about guys getting sacked so much. He didn't even like us. Like, I remember like getting to Cal, and I was like, I watched a whole bunch of Terrell Suggs highlight tapes, and he's lined up in like, it's not even a 9, it's like a wide 11. I'd love to do that. He's like, yeah, that's funny, because what you're going to do is you're going to be head up. You're going to contact this guy every single time in front of you. You're going to set edges. You're going to close creases, minimize gaps. You're not going to get too deep into the backfield and overrun plays. You're only going to get as deep as the deepest guy, as they always said it at Cal. And everything, every lesson, every teaching point that was actually on clock was dedicated to stopping the run. The only time that he dedicated towards pass rush was in extracurricular moments. Like in the gym, he would just come in, and we would do extra time and try and work on how to get around or do certain slow motion pass rush moves and whatnot. But very high emphasis on stopping the run, and that was one of the things that I actually did really well, and couldn't push me around either because of what they did mention, leverage. The instinct thing, that's an interesting thing.
Well, let me hold you up. Let me hold you up real quick, because your BS meter's going off, and you are absolutely correct, because I did not read your profile. I read the profile of the guy rated one step ahead of you on this particular publication, but interestingly, in the mock draft, they had you going at the end of the 4th round of the San Diego Chargers, and this guy going in the 5th round of the Cleveland Browns. And this guy was Eagles defense outside linebacker Trent Cole. So this was Trent Cole.
Who actually had a great career. Yeah.
He actually had a great career, but I got to say, I'm still thinking. See, I'm still thinking. I'm reading yours now, and you're like, they still got you as above average athletic ability.
That's accurate. That's generous to even say above average athletic ability.
Well, they said you could bench press 405 pounds, but need to add a little bulk. 34-inch vertical. Excels as a pass rusher. Explodes off the ball, stays low, and plays with leverage. See, that's where I knew you when you were like, wait a minute, the leverage thing, because I know that's your hallmark. They don't have, this guy got that right. Uses his hands well to play off blocks, has the speed to turn the corner, closes with an outstanding burst, instinctive, quick to locate.
There we go. See?
Ball. See, there you go.
Those are qualities I had.
That's right.
I had to compensate for my average physical traits with something.
See, able to slide down the line and get through traffic, can change directions easily, effective in keeping containment, disciplined, plays within the scheme, gives very good effort. Let's see, quality person with the respect of his teammates, hard worker, studies film, and prepares well for each game, and listed as an athletic tweener who came on strong as a senior. And they got your photo right over here. Tackling Kellen Clemens, as you said to me like earlier when I told you about this. So there we go.
Nice.
So
good blast from the past.
See, there you go. There you go.
And you tried to trick me with a fake.
I did, and you were, and you totally sniffed it out. See, so that's good. You were talking about, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't know. So we're gonna see if Randy Gregory is for real or what he's got to work on. And without me belaboring this point any further, let's go ahead and get to him. So we're gonna pull this up. We have a couple of choices here. It's been reckoned to me by Alan Demonjic that we should watch either USC or the Wisconsin game.
I'm just happy that you actually said his name. His last name. I always read that name and I'm like, I wish somebody can sound that name out for me.
Well, Alan, if you're listening and I screwed up your last name, let everybody know on Twitter, and if you can give us like the effective way to pronounce it, that would be great. But hopefully I did you justice there. So
I think you did. You did.
Okay, cool. So here we go. Where would you start? Do you want to do the Pac-10 thing, or do you want to go the Big Ten route?
Let's see. What are our options? We got Minnesota, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Michigan State,
and USC.
And USC. The most pro-style offense.
Yeah, which I would think would probably be USC, don't you think?
USC, yep, yeah. That's what I was saying.
Okay, so let's go ahead and bring this sucker up. And this is, as you guys know, we get a lot of good opportunities to watch tape from Draft Breakdown. I would highly recommend that you go check these guys out.
Great resource. Great resource.
Yeah, these guys work awfully hard to bring this to us, to any fan, and there are so many people who in the media who get a chance to watch tape this way. Yeah, we can't say enough good things about them. So go check them out. And I'm going to say this because I don't work for them, they don't work for me. But go click on an ad. Just do that before you leave. Just click on an ad. Support these guys a little bit. So
keep them alive.
That's right. So here we go. We're going to get this going, and
so I am, just full disclosure. I am I do have some exposure to Randy Gregory, and I'm not sure if I can't even remember if I specifically watched the USC game, but I'll just try and take it as it comes and keep each play for what it is, and not jump into my conclusions about this guy, and maybe even relive this and see if anything new develops in the analysis.
Man, however you want to do it is good with me. This is my first time watching him at all, so anything that you see would be valuable for you to add to folks.
And just to start off, that's a great use of his length and pulling that guy's shoulder down. But he's ideal, prototypical body frame, 6'6", 250 pounds, give or take. Long arms, as you can see right there, and these are the advantages of long arms. And you got to pay attention. And I caught up on most of the pass rush edge guys that I'm going to watch this year, and one of the things that is something I don't want to take for granted at all when I watch Gregory right now, as I'm appreciating this play right here, is that his upper body and his lower body are working together in a fantastic way. A lot of guys, if they're going to do this, jab with the arms, rip down with the pull down. Usually when they're doing that, their legs aren't synchronized with the body movement on the upper body movement, and so they'll usually either stop in their place and try to do the pull down, or even back up, try and take steps backwards. All of his movements from the lower body down, or from the waist down, are still headed right towards the quarterback, towards his target, and that's a really good job. He keeps the corner tight, and he gets around the block. So that's a fantastic move to start off with. And I'm not sure I've seen this tape, so this is good.
And what I really love about it is you see that understanding of leverage where it's getting that first hand on right away. So that one arm being longer, and having a little more distance so the defender can't get his arms into Gregory. And I love the fact, too, because we watched Sean Oakman again. If you haven't seen the Sean Oakman tape that we watched, I kind of made fun of Oakman's, taking my life into my hands, and made fun of Oakman's feet, that he had these long feet that looked like that he had scuba flippers on, in the way that he runs, because you kind of could see the way they kind of flop around. And we had a good laugh about that. But
it was just a mistake to give him your address right after that.
I think it probably was. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully he likes good cooking, so I can cook him a meal as a sorry. But as you can see with Gregory here, he's got the long feet as well, but you see he's on his toes a good bit. He's able to play on his toes there, and I think that's a difference between him and a guy like Oakman, who needs to, if he can learn to play on his toes and not be so flat-footed.
All right, excellent point. He just misses, but that's a real positive play for him. Just getting started too.
Yeah,
and we get a close up of it.
Yeah, and
that's he keeps him at bay with that arm extended right there. He makes his arms are so long, and he's got that sideways angle with it, so that he's preventing the offensive lineman to get into his chest and control him. Yeah. And he really is in control here, and that's a fantastic job.
Yeah, that's a
Tight
nice first
corner.
impression. Yeah.
Oh, and I will say that that to me, he's one of the better guys, one of the better prospects at using his hands well with while rushing the passer.
That's nice.
See, I'm doing what I said I wasn't going to do.
No, but that's okay. And you can see
Yeah.
right away, look at how active his hands are. And I think I think you should do what you
Okay.
set
Yeah.
out to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Look at that. I mean, that's a nice little combination there with that chop down like that after he kind of brings his hands up. It's like baiting and a little bait and switch there.
Yeah. And you could see when his hands make contact, he's got, as they say, the heavy hand aspect to him, where you could feel the power. It shocks, it knocks guys back, it keeps them at bay. It has an impact. He sent that guy on a hop backwards for an extra yard and a half,
Yeah.
just with a good lengthy stiff arm there before he chopped his arms down. So you could tell there's power behind his hand technique, and there's technique and efficiency with his placement, not wasted movement. Good stuff.
What kind of work do you have to do when it comes? I mean, how do you practice hand technique like this?
Well, for me, I practiced all the time. I used to spend my off time, if I'm in the summer, that break right before you go to Hell Week and camp starts. I'm in a pool underwater trying to move my hands as fast as I can underwater, and that resistance, that natural resistance, it helps you essentially have unlimited mobility at at high speeds with resistance. And just, it's a constant thing that you work on. That's why anyone who wants to do martial arts or kickboxing or anything with that incorporates that type of skill, it would definitely overlap and be a benefit in the football world. So the play goes away there, and not much to speak about. But see here, this is what he's doing an example of not getting too deep and moving lateral down the line of scrimmage, staying square, knowing when to turn and go. He's coached up well, and he obviously takes coaching. He absorbs it. So we don't have to say about Randy Gregory that he's just this immensely raw prospect that that is all projection and potential. No, we can see that he's realized much of that potential that he has.
Yeah, and here's another nice move, and you see that quickness off the ball, or not off the ball, but at least the quickness when he gets into his man and
Seeing
explodes through him.
That shove, watch how that shove actually opens the gap. He parts the sea a little more with that strength.
Yeah.
Boom.
Right there, yeah. And it's so well placed the way that he did it. Because you see him coming almost like look like he's heading outside. He's baiting the man with that outside step right here. That gets the man opened up a little bit more. But watch where he places his hands to take advantage of that leverage. As you talk about the importance of being able to play with leverage. He recognizes that leverage opportunity, so that when he puts both hands on him, the man still thinks the offensive lineman still thinks it's heading outside. But instead of this outside arm from Gregory really making an impact, he just uses that to brace and just kind of hold on and bait it and really hit him from the inside of the chest there.
Yeah, and we talked about this with the Leonard Williams tape. If anyone hasn't watched that, it would be good to watch too. Where when you're trying to move a 300-pound guy who's 6'5", give or take, or whatever, you're gonna have to take advantage of leverage opportunities in order to get that movement. And what you're pointing out quite nicely is that's what he's doing here. He's using the momentum of the guy's kick slide against him to take the inside.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, the use of the feet and hands in conjunction here. This is very much to me like a wide receiver releasing off the line of scrimmage against press, where you want to be attacking into the man, and this is you're you're reinforcing the tackle's kick slide with that one jab step outside right there. And because he's still moving at that point, his feet are actually in the air once Gregory takes that next step, and then he's still reinforcing that kick slide with both hands here. But then comes the kicker with that inside punch, and it's done right there.
I think he just scares that offensive tackle with the threat of speed.
Yeah.
Not much of a jab step. Just, oh my God, I think this guy's fast.
True.
And then quickly goes inside. There's not a lot of wiggle to Gregory. I mean, there was a little bit of a sway there, but at the moment that the lineman bites on a speed rush, it's just.
Yeah, he's not Dwight Freeney or or Doomerville when it comes.
He's a linear moving guy, straight lines. See, and this is good. I would prefer what he does here, even though the ideal thing at this point, when he has no way to go about it, driving this guy back into the quarterback, if you're capable of doing that, is always ideal, collapsing the pocket. But what he does well that most guys might not is he doesn't just run that loop until he's out of the play and then creating an escape lane for the quarterback. And any rusher who does that consistently is really just that becomes a red flag for me. You just can't keep running this imaginary loop thinking that you beat an offensive lineman to some spot where a quarterback used to be, and you did your job and you forced the guy to step up and hopefully other people take it from there. No, come back to the play, run back to it just like he did there.
Makes sense.
See, here he gets a little wild, and it looks like he's getting the attention of the back and the blocker.
Yeah, let's give that a quick look.
The tackle and the back.
And that's the tight end there with the little bit of a.
Is that a tight end?
Hug, yeah.
And see, I would say that his linear tendencies are why he ended up just running straight into this guy.
Yeah.
He didn't have an ability to really make a good jolt one way or the other.
That makes sense, and now I see why. Like when you saw that previous play where he kind of shows a bit of a jab there, why you would want to be quick to make sure and reinforce the idea that he is pretty linear in that sense, because you can see a really good example of it here, where that last play also. This is more of a shorter area too, so if you're not a linear guy and you're good to have a wiggle, this is the area where you're going to need to be able to do that after your second step. But
yeah, he gets quick set. The guy quick sets him. And Gregory has long strides. He wasn't ready for that and collided in a non-advantageous way.
Yeah, so you were talking about long, and talk a little bit about long and short strides. I know that Chase Stewart, by the way, if you ever watch any of these, that you love interviewers who say talk about. For some reason, this is a thing on Twitter that they like. People on Twitter just love. Some of the writers that we have are like, I can't stand when beat writers, you can hear them talking to a player and say, talk about this, So how about this, Ryan? Can you explain the difference between a short stride and a long stride and why that's important, please?
Well, I don't know how important or unimportant it is. I think it has both strengths and weaknesses. Like for a receiver, it's going to be beneficial for running that 9 route and straight down. It's going to be good for long-term speed, and in short areas where you have to make quick changes of direction and whatnot, it's probably going to work against you and be a liability to a degree. But as a pass rusher, you want someone who has at least the ability for long strides. It's very important because you cover ground quicker, but changing direction and fast reactions, all of those things are going to suffer to a degree. So you have to make up for that with low center of gravity, balance, anticipation and whatnot, so on and so forth. Like here we have an example of him having to change directions. He doesn't do a horrible job. He has to put his hand on the ground to reassess, get his balance going. You know, he obviously struggled to make that quick, 180 change of direction. But it wasn't. This particular play, it's not a killer or
No.
it's a nuance. But you know, you put it all together, and in the course of hundreds of plays and 16 games and whatnot, these little things are make and break you. The game of inches, right?
I do like that his head's up. He's looking into the backfield. He's trying to, like you said earlier, he assesses the situation. He's, may not be as quick and athletic to react to it in terms of the way that he handled it, but like you said, not a horrible play. But I do like that he plays with his eyes into he's reading what's going on, and you like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that he did anything that I would look down upon. Really, even putting his hands on the ground was a great way to get that change of direction as quickly as possible. So it worked for him.
Here's another example of him being linear.
Yeah, but he makes up for his lack of wiggle and shimmies and change of directions with very solid use of hands, and you can constantly see that his hands are working, and they're generally helping him out, and they're not idle, they're not futile, they're actually they're giving him more of an advantage.
Only if he could do a little Deacon Jones here and it'd still be legal, he would have been in good shape on that play.
With the penny strapped to the glove.
That's right. I bet there's offensive tackles who are still alive with their ears ringing and still probably cursing Deacon Jones right now.
Or they're just
dead, yeah. Or they can't hear anything at all anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna go that way.
Yeah.
And right here, I've been watching a lot of guys in this circumstance where we see Gregory, he finds himself in. We got a 4th and short. Obviously, you want to be stout, you want to be firm, you want to take on this blocker at the point of attack. You don't want to give up ground, you don't want to get pushed out, you don't want to get pushed back, and you don't want to try and run around this guy in this circumstance. This is a very important coaching point. You don't want to run around this guy. And a lot of these rushers in this class, Shane Ray might be an example, and many more, really. I saw this more often than not, is they avoid these moments where you have to be stout, you have to be physical, you have to be strong, you have to anchor in there. And I think Gregory does a relatively good job, considering. And he knows a good time when to shed that block. And I think he did a positive job on a 4th and short.
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, he was the first to attack on this play. You see him get his hands in there first, right into the shoulders.
Yeah. He gets the offensive lineman to turn and sort of open up the gate, and then he sheds it and squeezes down. But it wasn't his play to make. If it came his way, it seemed like he would be in position for that. Here, he almost gets blown back. He stops that from happening. But at the same time, he went a little too lateral. He wasn't fast enough off the snap here. His get off was a little delayed.
I've noticed that his get off isn't great. Like he tends to be a little bit slow with his get off compared to guys that you would watch who have been good NFL pass rushers. I wouldn't say that he's slow, but it's noticeable that he's not ultra fast either with it.
Yeah.
I mean, like that was very slow, actually.
Right. And we'll get into that a little later, actually, because I have stuff to say about get-offs, but maybe later.
Okay.
Okay, he's being double-teamed here. He's trying to work his way through trash.
What do you think about? I mean, like when you back up, like right here after you double team like this, and he's like, okay, some people would go, is should he keep charging upfield, or here he is kind of reassessing the situation and just kind of standing here. Would you say that's more of a, I'm trying to contain this lane to make sure that he doesn't try to escape through here? Or
He's looking at this quarterback, seeing potential scramble mode, which the quarterback looked like he was going into. There's a lot of things that he could do here. Keep attacking, but he wants to be free to make a possible pursuit against the quarterback. I'm personally not going to be too hard on him with his decision here. He was limited. It was a double team. He's trying to stay free.
yeah, and you could see that quarterback kind of react with a little bit of a shoulder dip to the outside just before he sets to throw the ball, and right here where that shoulder moves back, then you see Gregory kind of move that way too. So
yeah,
I get you.
and see there, his get off was at least on time with the rest of the guys.
Yeah,
pretty solid, and a good move inside. That was everything that you'd want him to do. He did it.
yeah. And you can see the consistency with his hands just shows up right away. There hasn't been a time that you'd go, I'd really like to see him more active with his hands.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even here, to me that's a somewhat impressive play when you get kind of hit by the guard right here and punched because you're looking at the edge man, and you're able to use your hands to fight through that quickly.
Yep.
Now he's got to take on this, but still, that's just to me that's a good sign.
I want to see him do some more of what we saw with that first play.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure the opportunity has really presented itself.
We're
catching the middle of this play, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of fascinated by this kick slide that he's about to do I'm just kind of joking around here, but you can see that he really wants to get to this quarterback, and a little kick to the shins might not be a bad idea at this point. So, I would imagine that you'd get somewhat frustrated as an edge rusher. You want to hit this quarterback, that there's going to be a time that if you can slide into a guy a little bit, that,
yeah,
might happen occasionally here and there. Oh, we might actually get a chance to see it. Let's see.
Yeah, let's go back and watch that.
Okay, that's not as much of a kick as I thought. Man, I was hoping to see a little professional wrestling. All right.
Okay, so here we see some wiggle, some change of direction, which we've been questioning about him, and his hands here just really great. He's got first the slap away that misses with the left hand right there, but it kind of has an effect in keeping that guy from coming down inside. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the main.
And then that swim around, that's a really good move. That's a good finish with his hands. Most guys don't have something like that. That's very good.
Yeah, and he's really consistent with this. I mean, we've seen even better ones where that initial slap to the side right there actually has the impact. But because we've seen and they've studied, it's the effect also of when you're a consistent player and good at something with film study, your opponent's film studying you. They probably know that you have heavy hands. They probably know that he loves this move and you're going to get slapped to the side here. And there's a part of your brain, if you've watched enough film of your opponent, that when he pulls this move on you and you're getting slapped to the side, you're already kind of anticipating the kind of moving over a little bit. I mean, I may be overthinking this a bit.
No. I think you're right.
And so as
look how even when he gets that arm and he gets that arm off of him with that right hand, he holds it there till he passes through.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good stuff. Eh, you gotta really pick and choose your moments when you want to attack inside though, and he seems to be really favoring that inside attack. That could be that could turn out to be a negative.
Okay.
But so far, like I could see why NFL teams would really be drooling over a guy like this.
Are there any potential negatives you're seeing with him in terms of scheme fit? Because like right now, what we're seeing a lot of is edge work. We're not seeing a lot of run work. We're not seeing him getting run at a whole lot here, at least at this point right now. What's his role strictly? What's his role that you see and go, this is where he fits, where he wins?
Where he wins,
Yeah.
well, he's definitely. Hold on, let me see this play.
Okay.
Yeah, well, one of the things that, aside from his hand movements and technique and ability to use his hands and the strength with those hands, I see a guy who doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, and just simply that kind of consistency coupled with his length, athletic ability, size, and all of that, he can really just be a consistent threat from the outside, and it doesn't come with a lot of concerns. He doesn't cost you. You're not hurt by what he brings to the table when he's not making plays. And a lot of guys will do that for like what was his name? Oh my, Jarvis Jones for Georgia. He drove me crazy because for every good play he'd make three horrible plays.
Mm.
And that's really, well, I would say where he wins is that he's not doing the things that hurt the team.
Right.
And those don't show up on stats. How many times do you look at a box score and say he created giant holes 8 times in this
Right.
game and was out of position 7 times, and those things don't show up. But when you watch a guy, you can see that he's doing that. He's hurting his team here. Where his assignment is, and he's being a liability to that assignment. And Gregory is a guy who is a positive. Almost every single play, he gives you positive production. He does his job. He stays within the confines of the expectations of the assignment. My only concern that I brought up that could be a counter to that is if he's consistently going inside when I know he has edge responsibilities and containment responsibilities. It's a risky gamble that it can't pay off all the time. And since I've made that comment, he hasn't really gone to that well yet. So it seems like he has a balance.
That's good, and that's an important. It seems like a very important point to be able to watch for is that he's, not a one-note type of player who can be keyed on in a way, or it's anticipated that he's going to go inside too often.
Yeah.
So,
but I do want to see more of that same, because I know that he's, like we said, a linear guy, and a linear guy trying to turn a corner is going to be a challenge for him to dip, get low, get that rip through under the shoulder and sort of bend around that edge is not something that he really shines at.
yeah.
But if he can do more of what he did in that first play, then he can compensate for any stiffness in his hips or anything like that that may exist. Because that move that's a great way to get a tight corner.
So who are some players in the NFL that he could model his game after?
Do you have any names that come to mind for you?
No, I don't actually. We'll table that question for a little bit as we watch a little bit more. How about that?
Yeah.
I mean, because the guy that he reminds me of in a sort of interesting way is Barkevius Mingo, like in terms of body type, but Mingo could bend a little bit better than this guy, but
Yeah,
didn't
Mingo,
have the
Mingo
hands.
had Mingo had way more agility. He was way more explosion and burst, but he couldn't finish. He didn't have instincts. This guy sees the game much better than Mingo ever did, but he doesn't have that explosiveness or that nimbleness, agility, and whatnot. But he's got more power. I really like, because usually when you got a guy that's this long and has a torso that's as long as Gregory's torso, you sacrifice strength and functional strength and power and the ability to move guys and collapse pockets and hold your ground and anchor in there. And he seems to do pretty well with that, considering his length. So that's impressive to me.
Does he look like a guy that can add weight to you? He seems to me like a guy that could add a good bit of weight and still be explosive.
All of these guys are going to add weight for sure. It's just a matter of becoming you look at yourself. Yeah, exactly. You look at yourself, no matter who you are when you're 20, 21 versus when you're 30, and you just, there's this man thickness that comes about, even if you never go into a weight room. And so
Yeah.
it's just inevitable. And that's one of the big things about making that transition, is that these kids are now playing against grown men who have been perfecting their craft and tuning their bodies over the course of a lifetime, and it's now coming to a crescendo, and they're in their primes. So sometimes, as we've seen there, and I'm not sure if you've seen it, but a couple of times, it looks like when a guy is able to get into that chest of his like that, he kind of gets bent over because of that long torso that I'm talking about. That's where the weakness of the long torso comes into play. This guy gets into his chest and he can sort of just bend that torso over. A short, compacted torso, a la Dwight Freeney type, and Elvis Dumervil. These short, compacted torsos. These guys may be smaller, but the way that
it's hard to get into their bodies like that.
It's, how do I even? Yes, but really, what I'm trying to say is that it's
Is it kind of like a low center of gravity for a running back?
Yes, but yeah. It's like, imagine putting Randy Moss as a running back, and you could just see where he would get bent over, right? Because he's long, and that's an advantage in some aspects, but not as a running back. And when you have that running back body as a pass rusher, it comes with advantages where you don't get bent over. And here you can see just examples of getting bent over.
Yeah. I mean, like right there, if you're a little shorter and you're, say, the Josh Robinson of pass rushers, you're low to the ground, you've got thick legs, you've got a thick trunk, and you're able to bend a little bit better and not be as linear, that push is something that you're probably going to still be able to run the corner here rather than be sent, another 2 yards outside and not be and totally veer away from the pocket.
Exactly, and couple that with when that push happened, his feet were close together, and you know how we talk about Marshawn Lynch, as he has that wide base with his legs are spread wide. That's so that you don't get tossed when you get pushed, you don't get moved around, and his linear approach works against him here. All of this, I would still say, we're pointing out as an example of what usually happens with these longer guys, and I'm actually trying to tell you that he does a good job hiding these typical deficiencies.
Yeah, I mean, this is a rare play from what we've seen in this game, and a lot of it is because his hands are so good, and that's what he's going to have to do to win in the NFL. Is you're going to say, where's he going to lose? Well, offensive linemen are going to say, get your hands into him. If you get your hands into him, you beat him. But that's like the big if, because if he gets really good at using his hands, even at an NFL level, which he's showing he can do at the college level, he becomes gifted at using his hands to swat away this strike and swat it away where he's not having to turn his body like this and expose himself. then you're looking at something even more difficult. Like here, you can see he knew what he needed to do. Like, I think he's thinking, let's see if we can watch this play again. Let's see if I got it. Okay. So you see the guy coming around, you see the strike, he's trying to chop the arm down, and then you see him wanting to rip up. Like, you're going to see this inside arm rip up here, but he just doesn't quite get it because of the angle that he's at and how he had to bend. But he knew what he needed to do there. He just didn't, so he's going to, hopefully he can come up with different combinations of moves that he knows are going to work a little bit better than in other situations, that he can maybe avoid getting those hands into his body a little bit more often.
Well said. And so essentially that play serves as a constant reminder to us watching Randy Gregory of what he has to fight against with his physical weaknesses. And so we just keep that in mind moving forward, how he's able to use his body to its strengths, maximize those, and minimize the deficiencies.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is where he wins, is even though this play doesn't really result in anything that he does well, using his length to his advantage. And again, using his length to advantage, using the one arm technique oftentimes while he's moving so that he can keep the hands off of him. And then that's something, that wasn't a great example of that, but it's still, one arm technique to keep the hands off and then do something off of that is always going to be helpful to him, because he's rarely going to have a guy who, he may not have as many offensive linemen who have as long arms as he does. Well, I don't know about that, but he can still use his length in that one way that can be helpful.
Yeah, and we saw a little feistiness in that last play.
Yes.
For good or bad, depends on how you want to assess it. Okay, a little holding his own in space.
Yeah. There's a little bit of I kind of laugh at this, but, I'm here for the comic relief tonight, I guess. It's my birthday. What do you want me to say? But, you flag, those guys with the orange cones flagging in the airplane? Here's a little bit of that coming right here. There you go. All right, bring it in.
Yeah, is that what he's doing? He's waving it in?
He's kind of waving it in. I think he is.
Daddy.
Let's watch it again. Here we go. He was excited, I guess,
I like it. Yeah, I like it.
It's the little odd things that you notice when you watch film all day long. So,
see, he's doing a good job squeezing that hole, not getting upfield, identifying that it's a run, holding his ground, anchoring in there, squeezing it shut, but maintain the outside leverage in case it bounces out. You're there. You're ready to run it down. You're not going to compromise your outside contain, but at the same time, you're not going to make that gap bigger. That's a good job.
nice.
And that's NFL stuff that a lot of these guys that I've been watching this year aren't doing.
That's a really nice nuance, and that's something I've never really thought about that I learned today that I really appreciate, because you can see, it's kind of maintaining the gap and shortening that gap, squeezing it shut like you said, and it's part of playing team defense here. Very nice. That's probably one of the coolest things I've learned all day. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely see a guy who's really well coached. So anyone who, even though we could see that he has a high upside projection in a lot of ways, here he is going to the well of, I want to use my inside move again. He gets the guard.
He gets hammered with the guard.
Guard helps him out. But he's also probably, in his scouting going into this game, as you mentioned, as players do, he probably has made the assessment that they have zero fear about number 6 for USC escaping the pocket to his left.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it really happen yet where number 6 will try and break the pocket that way. So it looks like his risks are somewhat calculated.
Yeah.
But I do want to see him get that edge more. I want to see him get that edge more, like he did in that first play.
Yeah, and here's a little more feistiness that we talk about here. He gets rammed to the ground after this play. Now you're going to see a little knee to the to the backside here, to the sciatic nerve, a little bit going on here, like a little boxing. No, he's going to little leg whip to the knee here,
and then a little punch to the calf.
Yeah, yeah.
And then let's see where he is with this on the next play.
Yeah,
because that's one thing I always try to do. If some guy's doing shady things to me, I'll just wait. The next play, I try and send a message.
Well, this little kick to the back, I wonder if I don't think he's limping a whole lot here, but he is moving a little differently here. Not too much. Right. He's all right. I'm sure he's a little sore from that kick to the ass, but that's that's what happens.
No, I think he can take worse punishment than that.
Yeah, I imagine he can too.
KC, I would have loved this setup personally. We have a deep quarterback, and we have a right tackle who is short setting it, relatively speaking, he's inviting an outside presence here. I really like that he attacks the lineman, the tackle, without rounding it off. I like that he attacks it, but he needs to set this guy up where he could break outside, and he sort of just drives right through him.
And this is actually Gregory's actually not the guy squared off here. It turns out that Gregory's running a twist from a tackle position here. Gregory's actually the guy.
So that's okay. Good.
So they just misidentified him by rare case.
Gotcha.
So you see Gregory right here twist behind the other tackle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it turns into a sack by the bull rusher, anyways.
Yeah, and he does a nice job. I mean, he has a hand in this because you get the nice one arm push here, collapsing that side of the pocket. It's a nice job. So is it.
This is a negative for me.
Yeah, me too. Because you want to see somebody in pursuit to be able to finish and grab, and
we've had very rare chances to see him making a tackle, and this is a chance where Gregory can make a good tackle, and he can't.
Yeah. And let me ask you a question here. I mean, we've rarely seen anybody run at him. Which you would think that
he handles the blocker really nicely. He's in control of that situation. He just isn't fast enough to transition from dealing with blocker to grabbing the running back.
Here's another negative that I have of him, and I've noticed this all night, is he's a kind of a one-move guy. This, it's almost like he's like the one-button video game controller, because when you look at the move, it's the same move as his pass protection. One arm, and he's going to come over the top, and it's like, seems like a very difficult move in this situation to try and execute that. Can you have another move here that might, in theory, work?
That's why when you say where does he win, it's a layered question, because even though what you just described is where he wins, it's also potentially where he exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you rely on any one thing too often, it becomes a weakness.
Yeah, I mean, like to me here, I mean, it's easy to second guess because it's easy for me to like pretend that we can freeze a guy like this, and then I can insert myself into the play to demonstrate, and then like have all five 11 of me and 200 and some change, and into a guy who's like this and a super athlete. But the fact that I would think here's where you might try to spin around, or you might have tried to set up with a different hand movement altogether, because it's just like it seems like everybody in the world, everyone on this field knows who's going to face Randy here, that he's going to come over the top of his arm to slap down and chop.
I would say he picked the right moves. I think he did everything right. He was a good position. He just wasn't quick enough transitioning from getting rid of the blocker to getting to the running back.
That's a fair point. It's a very fair point.
If spinning would have been probably a bad move that would have caused the running back to replace where he just the place he vacated.
Yeah. But he's a lumberjack, man. He's just chopping.
Yeah, and every play he gives the same effort, more or less. You can definitely see power. You can see his hand technique is solid. But you're right. You make a good point, and he's got that one button video game type thing going.
Yeah. And
every now and then he changes it up. But he has a few things that he can do really well, and so he just keeps doing them. And
if he can learn a rip, like you see him, like there was that one little evidence of a rip move that might be available. If he can learn a rip, if he can learn a good spin, if he can, it seemed like those two would be very nice for him.
Bending, a good bend. Like he needs to get one of those big circle things that all pass rushers, all teams have, and he needs to just practice running tight circles as fast as he can and try to do his pass rush moves off of that circle, because that's where that would sort of teach him to get a little less linear about everything.
Yeah, very true. And that can be learned. I mean, it's funny talking with you, talking with a guy like Chad Spann, the running back, who's been on our show, and he's talked about drills for your hips and drills for running in a way that's kind of more of a slalom-like movement, so that you keep your head up, your shoulders square, but you're moving your hips and getting more hip flexibility to change direction, but maintain your leverage and balance as you're changing that direction. He's like, that can be learned. That can be drilled. A lot of backs learn
absolutely.
that.
Yep.
So this is the same thing. What do you think?
That's great. But I mean, is that a receiver or tight end that he just completely dominated?
Looks like we've got our
tight
end.
A small tight end, no match for him. Completely owns it. I love that he keeps going into the backfield, but then he gets a little push there. But I'll take that as a decent play.
Sure.
Disruptive. He needed to break down a little bit right before he started feeling that momentum push by 13.
Makes sense. So
we didn't see a lot of tackles, right? We didn't see sacks, but we could see that things are going to work for Gregory. We can see where he's going to have success. We can see where he's a low-risk player to put out on a field because he's not going to hurt you. We can see where big plays can come his way. We'd want to see more about how well he tackles. We'd want to see more about his ability to get around an edge. We'd want to see what that speed he has, how quickly can he close. So far, I'd say it looks like he's got good but not amazing closing ability. His get-offs are inconsistent, but at best average, right? Great strength with the upper body, great hand movements, technically sound, built prototypical as you would want an edge guy, an outside linebacker, even a defensive end. It seems like he's scheme versatile, I'd say. But I would, you definitely got to put on a couple more tapes of his and fill in the holes about him. But there's a lot of promise, and it's not just a raw athlete. But this is a guy who's well coached, a guy who takes coaching, listens to it, absorbs it, applies it to game situations. He has good instincts. He's in good position. He he watches the ball. He pursues it. I'm a fan. I definitely like what he brings to the table. Now, when we start talking about him in the top five, you get a little, you turn that finely, you get a little bit more picky about what you want. And when I get that to that level, I have way more questions that need to be answered before I see top five. Before I see a guy that I commit that that kind of a draft pick. But maybe that's a reflection of a weak draft class. But just generally speaking, without having complete knowledge of what's available, I don't see a guy that I go, wow, yeah, I just want to get this guy as quickly as I possibly can because he needs to be on my team. And that's exactly how I feel about a guy like Leonard Williams, as you know. That guy, I'm just like, I want that guy as soon as possible. If I'm first overall, I'm drafting him. If I'm second overall, I can't put my card in fast enough. I have no questions how badly I want that man if I'm a general manager. Gregory, I don't have those feelings at all. There's a big, huge gap. And,
Yeah.
we talked about a lot of the reasons why.
And I think that that's a great point. And if I were someone that was working for an organization and had the opportunity to recommend to a leader, or I were a GM or a leader in an organization making a personnel decision, and I'm watching Randy Gregory as a possible first-round pick, possible top 10 pick, top 5 pick, and it's a reflection of a weak draft class, and there was really a need for him. The questions that I would want to get from people watching within my organization or me as that person doing the scouting would be, what do we need to do in the workout, in the interview, to find out how quick this guy learns? What is it, is he a fast learner with his coaching? How much did he really improve with the coaching that we see on the field? Can we show him some hand movements and watch him integrate that into his technique fast? Because I would think, looking at someone like, I'm using a quarterback as an example, but with Teddy Bridgewater and Norv Turner. I think the reason that Norv Turner liked Teddy Bridgewater so much, as we read in the media, was that the deep ball was always an issue with him on the tape, but Turner said, oh, he's got plenty arm. We just made some mechanical corrections, and it showed up right away. Well, as a fan, you would look at that and say, well, no, it didn't. He didn't look like he threw the deep ball all that well when he got into the league, got in as a starter earlier on, and during the preseason it wasn't all that great. But next thing you know, he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks at the end of the year in terms of completions over 20 yards down the field, and his deep ball game started to improve. And I think that that's, again, part of understanding the dynamics of performance. If you show a student something early on and they integrate it early in the practice session, they're not going to do that in the live game action right away. But
Excellent
it does,
point.
yeah. They're
Wow,
going to
yeah.
they're going to learn that. They're going to show that they can do it, but you still have to give them enough reps and time and show that they're going to work at it, and it's eventually going to be a part of their repertoire. But they've got to get enough reps to really get comfortable and a feel for it in a variety of situations. And they also have to have the courage to try it, which is the other thing that takes a little bit of time to do. So if I got a guy that I practice work with and say, he's showing that in practice right away and picking it up, then that's going to be a thing that tells me he's smart. The next thing I'm going to want to see is, does he show the acumen or how would I put it, the courage on tape in situations when I talk to him and interview him? Does he show the courage that says, like, I'm going to find a play, or hopefully find a play that say, why'd you make that choice? That doesn't seem characteristic of you. And he was like, because I saw this, this, and this on tape. This is what I saw. And while I don't normally do it, I felt like it would work. And if I can see a guy's thinking that he's willing to take a chance and he's willing to try something new, coupled with the fact that he was a quick learner in the practice, then that's enough for me to project that he'll eventually gain those skills, and it may take some time. Of course, that's probably also why when people say, well, why would you draft so-and-so? We all knew that he couldn't do X, Y, and Z, that, and the team says, yes, well, we thought he could. These were probably the rationale or the steps that they went through, or some of the steps that they went through, and it just didn't work out. But oftentimes it will. That's how I would do it, at least.
Man, I can't tell you. I've never heard anyone bring up that specific nuance, and it is so important. It is so important. Everything that you just described, it, and that courage is really not. We can't understate the courage to try that new thing. And you're right. They might be taught something and they work on it a few times, but when they get into a game, as they talk about Tebow's throwing mechanics and whatnot, you go back to what you're comfortable with. And we see with Gregory, he keeps going back to what he's comfortable with. But if you can get a guy and you can teach that guy to not only have the courage to try something new, but figure out when's the right time to do those things, and take what you do, what you practice, the new elements that you practice towards your game, bring it into the game time situations. That's how you continuously get better as a player. And if you could figure out a way to know if he's got that, then I think that's a great angle to pursue with whether or not you want to scout or draft him in the first round, I should say.
And I think this is a good example of this type of play right here, that might be you would ask him and go, I noticed you use this chop move all the time. This is like your bread and butter. But on this first play, this first 3rd and 6 opportunity you had in this game, Randy, you grab the guy with one arm, you've got this angle, and you just shove him to the side like that. You just rip him aside.
Yeah, pull down.
Yeah, and that was a great move, Randy.
Right.
That's the only time I've seen you use that in the game. Is that something new that you were learning? Why did you try that right here? And he might go, if it's what I suspect, he's going, Coach and I've been working on that in practice for the past couple of weeks, and it's something I've been using, and he said to me, just try it early. Just try that move early. Or he thought to himself, well, I'll try it early because it's a 0-0 game. What do I have to lose right here on the first 3rd and down? And they're backed up inside their 10. So what do I have to lose to give this one a shot? And if that's what he did, and it's like, I haven't seen any other tape, or my scouts haven't seen any other tape where he's tried this.
I could tell you, I've watched it. I've watched several games of his, and this one, when I saw it, I was like, hey, there's something to Gregory's game that maybe I've overlooked, and I realized it's just so rare that he goes to this.
But that's the thing. And I think that's the difference between a team that will probably pick him, in the top 10 or earlier, and a team that might want to wait, is if they interview him and they feel like he's a fast learner and that he has the courage to try what he's learning, and if a play like this actually turns out to be an indication of him having that courage to try something new and to slowly integrate new concepts into his game. And if
I'm willing to bet that he's the kind of guy that'll do that, because a lot of the things that I see him doing, I can see that he's listening to coaches. I can just see his game, that he is heavily influenced by coaching. Like, he listens. I can tell that he does it. But coaches, that's what he's doing from coaching, are exactly the things that you get from most coaches, which is how to play within the scheme of the defense, how to play with 10 other players. That's what coaches give you. Coaches don't generally give you how to beat the guy in front of you. And that's where all of a sudden he becomes more limited, because nobody's giving him great wide range of opportunities and, or I should say, coaching points to try new things and to layer on different elements to his rush his rush game, his pass rushing moves. That's where coaching is going to be extremely limited, extremely uh, not only in time, but most coaches don't really have good advice to give to a guy on how to beat another man to get a sack. It's a special coach who can give you that, and so that's where he seems the most one-trick pony-esque, right?
Yeah.
Trying to beat the guy in front of him. But where he is given coaching, I could tell he applies it, he utilizes it, he makes it a part of his game. He really eats it up. He absorbs it. So I would imagine, just from what I've seen, that if you can give this guy really good coaching points in terms of beating the guy in front of you, being a better pass rusher, a pass rush specialist, he would benefit. I would imagine. That's my guess. He would benefit.
I'm going to be very interested to see who drafts him and your reaction, Ryan, because of maybe who the players are on his roster. As you've talked about in the past, that oftentimes young players learn more from veterans than they do learn from coaches when it comes to beating the man in front of you.
Right.
And so if that's the case, it'll be interesting to have your take if you know about some of these guys, if you happen to know about some of these guys' reps and going, okay, this veteran is a good teacher. This veteran's going to be able to teach him X, Y, and Z. And if Randy Gregory is a student of the game that he is, he could really benefit from this guy, or this is a situation where they might be a little bit more tight-lipped with it because they're trying to hold on to their job in a way that their personality isn't going to be as open, but
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that works. But definitely a great player and to watch tonight and
He's
see
a safe bet. He's a safe bet. I don't see. He has a very, very high floor. That's how you say it, right? He has a high floor.
Yeah, that's a Bloom term, right? Is that a Sigmund Bloom term? A high floor. So there we go. As opposed to a high waist, he's got a high floor. So, but no, it's a definitely.
So in other words, you're not gonna miss big with drafting Gregory. I don't think.
Not at all.
Any injury or whatnot, he'll be a productive NFL player. He'll have a good, solid career, and his potential and his upside is promising.
Yeah.
So I like him. I would want him. I would be very cautious that early in the draft, though, with him. I probably would stay away from that. Unless it's just that weak of a draft class, which I'm not sure it is yet. I don't know. But it's starting to look – and that would make sense. As I just mentioned on Twitter, like most of the best players from this draft class left last year. So it's thinned out just by how many early entries were from the class before this.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on all takes with that, and it's certainly going to be interesting what it bears watching. I mean, if you're a team though that needs an edge talent, and you're looking there for, and the guys that you want are gone, and you're stuck in a position where you're like, who has the most upside? Who's someone that we can teach? Who's someone that's going to be able to, who's not going to be a bust for us at the same time? Gregory's going to be on that short list probably for a number of teams, and it will come down to, some of the soft skills that we talked about just a few minutes ago, which is just how quick of a learner, how willing are they to take risks and to incorporate that into their game, how much do they enjoy being coached and coached up, and how much do they absorb. So, there you have it. Definitely a fun session. Ryan, I would just want to thank you again for joining us, and we're going to end this thing. And again, you can go to YouTube, go to the RSP Film Room and subscribe there. You're going to see Ryan on here regularly because he just does fantastic work, and it's always fun getting a chance to watch film with him. And if you're interested in doing this as well and I haven't contacted you, feel free to contact me, and we'll try and set something up down the line. So once again, thank you. Good night.